Well, some reporting from Jon Wilner in Pac-12 country confirms that Kirk Schulz thinks Fox is largely to blame for the breakup of the Pac-12. And on top of that, Arizona's flirtation with the Big 12 may have played a large role in bringing things down at the final hour, too. Welcome into the YouTube channel. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, I talk college football, college basketball, conference realignment, all from a Big 12 slant. Please do consider subscribing if you have not subscribed. I would very much appreciate it. Click the bell so you know when I'm going live, which is Wednesdays and Sundays, and you know when I'm dropping content like this. You won't miss a thing. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo as well to support the channel if you would like. Here's what we have today. Some great reporting from Jon Wilner that gives a little more insight into, one, what Kirk Schulz is saying. And by reporting, I suppose here it's Jon Wilner listening to Kirk Schulz talk through something that was released through the university, but that does provide some good insight. The other part is Arizona. Even though Wilner is not going to step out and say that Arizona wouldn't have signed the grant of rights for the Pac-12 and the TV deal for the Pac-12 on that fateful Friday, he does seemingly admit here that Arizona's flirtation with the Big 12 helped play a role in bringing things down at the final hour. So here we go. Washington State's Kirk Schulz, chair of the Pac-12 Board of Directors, suggested late last week that Fox might have lured Washington and Oregon into the Big Ten in order to prevent the Pac-12 from signing an agreement with Apple. Quote, "We've got just a couple networks that are making the real decisions about who goes where based on the dollars they want to put into it," Schulz said during a conversation published on the university's YouTube channel. Quote, "I do think if I were Fox and ESPN, I'm not sure I want Apple in the marketplace, frankly. I don't want somebody with pockets that are deep as a rival if I can afford it." Now, look, I'm not going to say that I think there's nothing there. I think there probably is a little bit of something there to what Kirk Schulz is saying. Look, they would prefer certainly to have Apple out of the game. Is that enough to take on Oregon and Washington in and of itself? I would doubt that. I think there are still other considerations going on there, and that is a piece of the puzzle. But I certainly won't blame Kirk Schulz for saying that here in the position that he is in. Little context here from Jon Wilner. He says Fox owns the Big Ten's media rights and was responsible for the $375 million that Washington and Oregon will receive over 6 years of the conference's media contract. Fox has not made a deep push into the streaming market, preferring to focus on delivering sports content over its linear networks. Meanwhile, Apple has distribution deals with Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer and was attempting to break into the college football space through an agreement with the Pac-12. Quote, "Was it a strategic move on their part to say, if we kill the Apple deal, that gives us 5 or 6 years without them in college football?" Schulz said. People say Kirk put on a tinfoil hat. That's kind of a conspiracy theory. But on the other hand, I can see making a business decision. I'm not talking about the value of the schools or any of that. That might be seen as more strategic to have a corner on the marketplace. I can't sit here as somebody who was fully behind Bob Bowlesby with his tortious interference claims about ESPN when Texas and Oklahoma left and say that this is all off base from Kirk Schulz. I mean, does it come across as a little bit whiny in the aftermath? Sure, but I think you have every right to be, if you are a Washington State or an Oregon State dignitary, fan, whoever it might be here. Feelings aside, which I have many on Kirk Schulz of how things went down in that whole year-long process, I think there probably is a little bit of validity to what he is saying. I would still stop short of saying that was the full driving force behind the decision, but I'm not going to totally discount this from Schulz. More from Wilner. He says the theory that Fox wanted to block Apple has traction across the Pac-12 footprint and support in the broader sports media space, but Schulz is the first Pac-12 executive to address it publicly. During a wide-ranging discussion with retired journalist Enrique Cerna, a member of Washington State's Board of Regents, Schulz acknowledged that the Cougars were standing in line like everybody else to collect that check from media companies, but he expressed concern over the role that Fox and ESPN play in conference realignment. Quote, "The more you pull competition out of the marketplace, the easier it becomes for some of these funders to really call the shots. We're sort of down to really two dominant players that are really determining what happens with expansion. I don't mean necessarily that any one of them is calling a commissioner and saying, go get these two schools. Maybe that's happening. I don't know that. But what is happening is the commissioner calls them and says, we'd like to add X and Y, and the networks get to make the decision. Do I give a pro rata amount for that, or do I say, sorry, we're not going to give you any money? I would argue that's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules, and that's where we are right now. I'm not sure that anybody could really clap back much at that piece of what it is that Kirk Schulz said. But here is the other part of this article that is very interesting, the Arizona factor. So Wilner says, what changed in early August other than Fox's willingness to fund the expansion? Arizona's application for a membership in the Big 12 played a key role in the process, according to a source. The Wildcats weren't the only school to seek a lifeboat. Utah and Arizona State would follow them into the arms of the Big 12. But in an attempt to secure home in case the Pac-12 collapsed, Arizona formally applied for membership in the Big 12 in the middle of the week before Oregon and Washington rejected the Pac-12 grant of rights agreement on that fateful Friday morning. All right, in case the Pac-12 collapsed is in italics here in the way that Wilner writes it. This to me is kind of a hat tip, an ode to the back and forth between Jason Scheer and like John Canzano that was going on for a while, where Scheer said, look, Arizona was leaving no matter what. Canzano said, no, everybody was ready to go on Friday. That's ridiculous. This is kind of a meet in the middle point from Jon Wilner here, where he's saying, yes, Arizona did actually on that Thursday apply for membership formally to the Big 12, but he is making the point that it was done in case the Pac-12 imploded, that they were kind of covering their bases. I'm going to side with Jason Scheer on most things related to this based on his track record in it. I still think that Arizona would have left on their own, and you would have had Arizona and Colorado in the Big 12, even if the rest of the four corners hadn't come and Washington and Oregon stayed put. But I digress. Wilner at least is conceding the point that Arizona did apply for formal membership there. So that's kind of like inside baseball in terms of how the reporting has gone with all of this, but I did find that very interesting. So anyway, Arizona still, he admits, the fact that they did that brought it all crumbling down. Here's the crux of it. He says the Big Ten became aware of Arizona's application to the Big 12, according to the source. So when Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti tells his presidents, we aren't the ones, the source said, they felt like they weren't the ones to fire the kill shot. So here's the timeline he's saying. Arizona is still thinking Friday morning they're going to sign this grant of rights and the deal for the Pac-12. But Thursday night they say, hey, we need to be safe and apply for Big 12 membership just in case. They do that. The Big Ten gets wind of that and says, hey, look, we're not going to be the ones with blood on our hands. Arizona's already going to leave. So someone else is going to leave. This thing's sinking anyway. Let's go make the offer to Oregon and Washington. That's how it's being presented here by Jon Wilner. To finish off, he says that triggered the Big Ten presidents to approve membership for Washington and Oregon without guilt and with Fox's cash as their carrot. Arizona's application was approved by the Big 12 on Thursday evening, even though President Robert Robbins awoke Friday morning prepared to join Arizona State and Utah in signing the Pac-12's grant of rights deal. By then, the Big Ten's hammer had fallen. All right, that's probably, I suppose, the final word that you're going to get out of Pac-12 country on how it all went down. Again, I at least respect the take here of Wilner a little bit more than Mr. Canzano, but interesting meat to chew on there all the way around. If you like this content, please do consider subscribing. You're going to get conference realignment, college football, college hoops, all from a Big 12 angle here on this channel. Constantly, I'm live Wednesday and Sunday. So like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. You can support me on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 as well. Appreciate each and every one of you, and I will talk to you soon.